Hey there. So, some time ago, I did a book review on a book called Forbidden Colors by Yukio Mishima. And I liked the book, and I said I was going to keep reading his books. And I just finished another one of his called The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea. And seeing that no one else on YouTube seems to know that he exists, his books exist, I figured I'll do another book review so that people can know a bit about him and his books. So first off, as you could just tell from the book sizes, this is a much shorter read. I got this book yesterday and I finished it today. Honestly, you could, if you saw this at Barnes & Noble, you could probably sit down and get this done in 5 hours if you read really fast. Just to show you the size of the font and the spacing, as you could tell, it's very big, spacious. So it's a short read. That being said, let's go into the plot. So the synopsis, if you read the synopsis, it kind of spoils the ending. That's what I think. So I'm going to try to just summarize it myself. So there's this kid named Noboru, and who lives with his mother. And I'm going to butcher her name, but oh, oh my gosh, what's the name? Fusako. There we go. Fusako, his mother's name. And the kid's a fanatic about the ocean, the boats, yada yada yada. And so one day the boy and the mother go on a boat, do a little tour or whatever, and they meet the sailor called Ryuji. And nobody loves this guy because he represents to him, what it is to be a man. He's muscular, he's attractive. His skin is dark because he's always out at sea in the sea salt. He lives an adventurous life. It's what it sounds like. And Ryuji, and the mother quickly they have a little fling at first, and then it gets more serious and serious. And Noboru likes him up until the point where it gets the relationship between the mother and the sailor get really serious, and it just all goes downhill. Also in play is Noboru's friends, or I guess you could say gang of philosophers, for lack of a better word. They meet up and they basically lament about life and how meaningless it is and how everyone is empty and shallow. Sounding like a typical pretentious hipster, but you have to, with Yukio Mishima, you have to, look not so much at the story, but at the overall message of what he's trying to portray. So it all goes downhill, and it leads to a very rough climax. So the ending is, like I said, a rough climax, and it's kind of sad. Like I said in the other review, Yukio Mishima is more for the pessimistic people out there in the world, such as myself. And I would say even people suffering from depression probably enjoy this book. It's very dark. I mean, it has its nice moments, but it's very dark. The people are just cruel, and people you'd least expect to be cruel are cruel. And it's just, and like it, and but it has you gripped. It really has you gripped. The cruelty, you don't expect it, but it's understandable to a certain extent. You understand why they're like that. But it's like, it's totally realistic. One thing I think he should have done was not have 13-year-olds. If he had used 17-year-olds, like someone just about to come of age, it would have been a lot better. But there's a certain flaw that you just gotta get over. So I guess going into the writing style, you know, as you could tell, I really enjoyed the book. So it's definitely readable. Yukio suffers from going a little too much into metaphors when writing about stuff. You know, Forbidden Colors was riddled with this stuff. It was terrible. The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, it has metaphors, but it's not as bad as Forbidden Colors was, so it's good, so it's a lot more readable and enjoyable in that sense. But again, it does suffer from the occasional metaphor, which is just like, come on, you know? Like, there's this one scene with the 13-year-old, and you know, he talks and he's thinking to himself, and it's just so, you know, it's so, like, I guess, poetic and so profoundly deep, but it's not something that an average 13-year-old would think of, you know. And so that's why I said it would have been better if he had done it like a 17-year-old. But it's another thing where it's like I said, you have to understand his writing style and the overall message of what he's trying to say, because he had when he wrote these books, he had his ideals completely in mind when writing these books, you know. Because if you just read this book straight up, you know, when just initially reading it, you go in blind, you know anything about it, you're just gonna think these 13-year-olds are hipsters, losers. They're just losers. Be honest with you, they're losers. They're creeps. Especially Nobuto, he's just a plain creep. Like, the stuff that he does, it's like, you know, well, that kid's definitely gonna grow up to be some creep in the basement, you know. And you would like, whoa, what is going on? But again, like I said, you gotta look at the symbolism, what he's trying to represent. So the writing style, it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable read. Sometimes it gets a little bit on the far end, but you know, that's just how he is. So you gotta look at the meaning behind the meaning. Okay. So, did I like the book? Yes, I did like the book. Again, not for everybody. You definitely have to be pessimistic about life and look at the overall message of what he's trying to say, which goes into the symbolism of the book. Okay, so, you know, I've looked into this, and to a certain extent you can agree with it, you know, but each Noboru, the sailor, and the mother, they each represent different aspects of Japanese society, and clashing with each other. And you know, some getting along with others, and others just completely revolting against what the others portray. You know, and it's tough because, you know, to a certain extent, Yukio has a point at what he's trying to say, but the way he wants to go about saying what he wants to say is just so, it seems wrong, but it's like, is there any other way to do it? You know, Yukio has this mentality about Japanese society that is going in the wrong direction, and you know, and I look at Japanese society today, and it's like, was he really that wrong? You know, I actually just finished watching a documentary about suicides in Japan, and they were talking about how they have 30,000 suicides a year, and that's like one of the highest in the world for countries. And they even mentioned Yukio Mishima's suicide, and you know, you read his books, and it's like, oh, you know, how far was he wrong with what he was saying? And you know, that can go into a whole other video, which I'm considering doing, you know. But this book completely embodies his ideals of what is wrong with society, and it's for a lot of people, it's gonna be hard to accept what he's trying to say, because it would mean a complete change of what they know. And you know, his solution to the problem is something that most people would completely ignore because they're sheltered or for whatever reason. You know, so it's very difficult to accept his ideals. You know, it's like, the way I see it, it's like, you know, it's like, I don't know, something beautiful can be so deadly. You know what I'm saying? Like, flowers can be so beautiful, but if you touch them, you smell them, you could die. You know, but people don't want to accept that for whatever reason. It's not the best example, but you know, everything points that, oh, you know, everything is getting for the better, but is it really? When you look at the bigger picture, which is behind the scenes, are things getting better? And it's like, I don't really know. So Yukio Mishima definitely makes you think about life. You know, not even in Japan, because there's a lot of, you know, similarity that you compare, well, for me, to the United States. You know, suicide is not as bad as in Japan, but the United States is the most medicated country in the world, and for depression. And you know, a lot of people suffering with depression have suicidal thoughts. And why is this? Maybe there's something wrong with society that's causing this. And is it heading in the same direction as Japan? You know, there's just a lot of questions that you ask, and you begin to think, is this really how life is? And Yukio brings those to mind. So, I recommend this book, yes, but you're gonna get depressed. You're gonna you're gonna get a more, I'd say, more realistic outlook on life. Do I agree with his methods of how going about doing it? I don't know yet. I mean, it's starting to seem like, well, he's got a point, but I don't know if I'd agree with his method of doing it, of making changes. So it's something you have to decide for yourself. But if you know, if you really want a dark read that's gonna just tear your concept of society apart, then yes, read The Sailor Who Fell from Grace of Sea and his other works. So that's all I have to say. I'll probably read another of his sooner or later, so be on the lookout for that. Take it easy, guys.